The wind howled through the ancient forest, carrying whispers no one could understand. Deep within the shadows, a young girl in a torn blue dress ran, her red cape fluttering behind her like spilled blood. Her breath was shaky, her eyes wide with fear, but she didn't dare stop. Someone was chasing her. The branches seemed to move like skeletal hands. The trees groaned as if alive, and the moonlight only revealed more darkness. This was not the fairy tale kingdom from picture books. This was something far older and far more dangerous. Snow White had not always lived in fear. She was once the brightest light in the kingdom, loved by the people for her kindness and beauty. But the queen, her stepmother, saw her as a threat. Jealousy turned into hatred, and hatred into something far more terrifying. The queen wasn't just vain. She had made a pact with the forest itself, a dark contract that allowed her to command shadows and mirror spirits. Every time she looked into her enchanted mirror, she didn't just ask who was fairest, she asked who she needed to destroy next. The day the mirror whispered Snow White's name, everything changed. Snow White fled into the dark forest, her footsteps echoing against the hollow silence. It wasn't long before she stumbled upon a hidden clearing lit by strange blue fireflies. There, carved into the rock of a hillside, was a tiny door. She had no choice but to push it open. Inside, she discovered a secret underground cottage, where 7 dwarfs lived. But these dwarfs were not the cheerful workers sung about in fairy tales. They were guardians of the forest, ancient protectors bound by magic, each one cursed with a flaw that mirrored human greed, anger, pride, and despair. Snow White begged them for shelter, and though they were suspicious, the forest itself whispered to the dwarves, "Protect her, she is the key." But the queen was relentless. 3 times she disguised herself with forbidden spells to trick Snow White. First, she offered a ribbon laced with choking magic. Then, a poisoned comb carved from the bones of a wolf. And finally, the apple. When Snow White bit into it, the forest screamed. The trees twisted in agony, the animals howled, and the dwarfs fell to their knees. Snow White collapsed, her lips turning as red as roses, but her skin cold as marble. The queen thought she had won. She returned to her mirror, demanding it declare her the fairest once more. But the mirror hesitated. Its surface cracked. The forest was not finished. The dwarfs built a crystal coffin for Snow White, placing it under the eternal glow of moonlight. Days turned into weeks. The forest wept, its leaves falling black and brittle. But then, one night, a traveler wandered into the woods. A prince, yes, but not the storybook kind. He was scarred from battles, carrying grief like armor. He heard the forest whisper to him, "Find her, save her." When he saw Snow White lying in the coffin, he didn't kiss her out of desire. He pressed his lips to hers as an act of desperate hope, whispering words of life into her cold body. And for the first time, the forest answered his plea. Snow White's eyes fluttered open, filled not just with life, but with something else, power. The queen felt it instantly. Her mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces, each shard slicing her reflection until she screamed and vanished into nothingness. Snow White was no longer just a girl. She had been chosen by the forest, marked as its true guardian. With the dwarfs by her side and the prince's courage, she became something greater than the queen ever imagined. Not the fairest, but the strongest. From that day on, the forest was no longer a place of fear. It was alive with light, laughter, and protection. But the whispers never stopped entirely. They warned of future dangers, of dark hearts rising again. And every night, as the moon painted silver across the trees, Snow White stood watch, no longer running, no longer afraid. She was the secret the forest had been waiting for all along.